Welcome back as we do this final video on female breast. So this picture here is just to show you that no two women's breasts are alike. Some have one side larger than the other, some are droopy, some are perkier, some are smaller, some hang lower on one side. There's a ton of variation. Some nipples stick out and are very erect. Others are more retracted or flat or even inverted if you haven't ever been pregnant. So talking about the mammary gland. The mammary glands have their location because there's what is called the milk line. And so sometimes people have accessory little nipples in that milk line. And so even though this is the area that's considered the breast actually has a tail which goes up towards the axilla, and so all of this is breast tissue. And then if you notice, the lymph nodes that are draining this area tend to be on the lateral aspect, the axillary area going up towards the subclavian area. Now the medial aspect of the breast does drain to lymph nodes over here next to the sternum. So the breast tissue itself is mostly adipose tissue, unless you are a lactating female, where we have lobes that have little lobules inside of them. And when we look at this structure closer, what we can see is we are going to have what looks like a little glandular structure with its epithelial cells, and it's surrounded by smooth muscle cells that can contract to have that fluid ejected. So once again, the breast tissue is anterior to our ribs. It has lobes and lobules, which then lead to lactiferous ducts, which all go together into the nipple, where there are about half a dozen to a dozen openings. And the nipple also has smooth muscle fibers that when stimulated help with the milk letdown reflex. In addition, there are suspensory ligaments attached from the fascia of the pectoralis major muscle to the undersurface of the dermis. The areola is the pigmented area, and it contains many sebaceous glands. And then on this nipple, I think you clearly can see some of the lactiferous duct openings. The sebaceous glands are important because when a baby is breastfeeding, if you didn't have the oily material there, then what would happen is you would end up with chapped nipples, and they crack and they bleed, and it's so much more painful. You know how painful chapped lips are. Chapped nipples are like 100 times more painful. It's not anything that any breastfeeding woman wants to experience. All right, so looking in a non-lactating, non-pregnant female, as you can see, a lot of adipose tissue. The ducts and the lobes and the lobules, very inert, not doing much of anything. So I'm going to introduce a new word, alveoli, because we actually have alveoli in the lobules and the lobules in the lobes. And so the alveoli are each one of these little, it looks like a little round gland, and that's called an alveolus, with its little epithelial cells that will be secreting. In the pregnant breast, however, these alveoli and thereby lobules and lobes enlarge massively, and so this is why the breast enlarges in size. You're not cutting down on the amount of adipose tissue, you're just increasing the amount of this type of tissue. So here's what happens in pregnancy. As you know, there's higher levels of estrogen and progesterone. That's going to cause the milk ducts to enlarge as in their diameter gets wider, and that makes the breast swell and they may become tender. Early in the pregnancy, the alveoli are growing. They're actually getting bigger and enlarging, and in mid-pregnancy, the alveoli actually get the lumen so that their secretions will be connecting out towards the lactiferous ducts. So it's one of the earliest signs of pregnancy, like within a month of getting pregnant, almost every woman's breast will be larger just due to the hormonal changes that affect the breast. And so you may not have told your mother that you're pregnant yet, but she may be able to tell just because your boobs look bigger. So in addition to that, something else that happens because we have more activity going on in the breast, and because of hormonal influence, we're going to have increased blood flow to the breast. And so now it's very common to start seeing dark veins on the surface. You have increased arterial blood flow, but that's deeper. You don't see it, but you can see the dark veins because there's increased blood flow out of the breast. And so in these pictures, I think you clearly can see the difference between a non-pregnant and a pregnant breast. And the last change, and I use photographs for this last one, is that the areola and the nipple enlarge in size. So whatever size they were, they're no longer going to stay that size. And whatever color they were, a light pink or a peach or whatever color, they're going to darken and turn some shade of a brownish color. And they will never, once you give birth and you're no longer pregnant, they will never go back to the original size or the original color. So let's talk about human milk. The production of it is regulated by prolactin coming from the adenohypophysis. So P, prolactin, P, production, okay? And when it comes time to be released, the different components are released by different types of secretions. So human milk, I'll show you the composition shortly, has a lot of lipid and a lot of protein in it. So the protein elements are secreted through merocrine secretion, as in exocytosis of the protein elements. In contrast to this, the lipid components are secreted through apocrine secretion, where part of the apical portion off with their heads is released into the duct. And so here's the table if you want to pause and look at it. It compares what is in breast milk to formula on the far right and cow's milk in the middle. So cow's milk should never be a substitute for breast milk early in a child's life. If we look, all of them can give us enough calories. But the protein in breast milk is the easiest of the three to digest. But since breast milk is done in a laboratory chemically, we have done some pre-digesting of the protein in that. The major carbohydrate in breast milk is lactose, as it is in cow's milk, but in formula they also throw in some sucrose, which is 2 glucose molecules. Fat. There's a lot of essential fatty acids in breast milk so that you can have absorption of your vitamins. And in addition, breast milk includes a lipase enzyme, which helps break down the lipids, whereas lipase is not included in either of the other two types. Vitamins, perfect, as long as mom's nutrition is okay. And vitamins are added to formula milk, and there's not enough vitamins in cow's milk. Also, don't forget, breast milk is going to have our secretory immune globulins as well as other useful chemicals. So the bottom line is breast milk is best, but if you can't do breast milk, then do formula milk and don't over dilute it. Follow the correct dilutions and don't switch over to cow's milk until the pediatrician has said it is okay. And when you do switch over to cow's milk, it must be full fat for at least 12 months because we need to make those myelin sheaths. Remember, they're not fully formed at all until the first few years of that child's life. All right, so the lactating breast now is making lots of protein, lots of lipids. We're going to have some apokine secretion, some merocrine secretion, and what triggers the milk ejection is oxytocin. Okay, so prolactin for production, oxytocin for milk ejection, and the way this is going to work is those smooth muscle cells surrounding the alveolus and surrounding the lobules contracts. If you see surrounding each alveolus, there are a lot of smooth muscle cells. Okay. So at this point, I think this is your final GWAP. So discuss what has happened as far as structure goes and everything else and what's happening functionally. So with breastfeeding, the way breastfeeding happens is the baby has to latch on. It latches on by putting not only the nipple, but the areola inside the baby's mouth, okay? As opposed to a baby bottle where just the nipple is going into the baby's mouth. And as it suckles, that gives the positive feedback for oxytocin to be released for the milk letdown reflex. Now, once your body knows what it's doing, just the fact that you hear a baby crying is enough to stimulate the milk letdown reflex. Or if it's been a while since you have either pumped or breastfed, then you can start leaking. These are lovely little breast pads, which are wonderful because the worst thing you want to do is be at work or be out someplace and you start getting red dots. Not red dots, wet dots over your nipples. So breast pads, an essential buy for your pregnant friends. And at some point in time, you do have to wean your baby off of breast milk. And my personal opinion is if they're old enough to hold a cookie and eat it, they're old enough to be weaned off of breast milk. And with that, I want to thank you because we are completely done with the female reproductive system. And that means I am done giving you new material this semester. Thank you.